Hello and welcome to the Tough Cover Podcast. I am your host, as always, Mark Henry Jr. Please follow me at Mark Henry Jr. _ and please follow the Painted Lines at the Painted Lines and give them a subscribe on YouTube. On today's show, we are hot, folks. I said yesterday we came into today's show on a heater. We come into today's show on a heater. Another profitable day on the Tough Cover Podcast yesterday. 5-2. Plus 15 units. We hit our 4 biggest plays. We smashed our best bet. It was a good day. It was a good day. Unless you're a WWE fan like me, the Royal Rumble was not fantastic in my opinion. But we put that aside. The Sixers won. If you're a Flyers fan, the Flyers won. My bets hit. It was a great Saturday. Let's have a great Sunday. On today's show, I give my NFL picks. I got a couple props. I dove deeper into the props than I usually do. And I found 2 that I actually really, really like. I'm going to talk a little bit about hedging. A lot of people have futures going into this week or going into the Super Bowl. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. I'm going to give my picks, obviously. And then I've got one special pick in the NHL. Marky Pucks is here. And then I've got one special pick in basketball. So without any further ado, let's get ready to gamble. So we are up 35 units in January. As I said, we were up 20 going into yesterday. We cashed 15 units. Let's get it started in the NFL. At 3 o'clock, I got a bunch of bets on this game, but let's start with my future that I'm going to talk about. I have Bengals plus 800 to win the AFC from week 18. And that's something that I'm going to be looking to hedge. I took this before the postseason because I saw that they could be playing the Raiders and then the Titans potentially. That's what happened. I really liked those matchups for Cincinnati. And then I thought, you know what, we'll get to the AFC Championship game when we get there, and hopefully there's a good hedge opportunity. That's obviously not the case with the Chiefs being 7.5-point favorites here over Cincinnati. But I still think it's great value, even if I don't really believe in it to win this week. Like I said last week, Mahomes is 58-15, so betting against Mahomes to win a football game is just never a smart proposition. He's now 8-2 in the playoffs. I'm hoping that since he gets up early and gives me hedge opportunities to cash no matter what here on this bet. But I'd say the Chiefs aren't the team that's due for the letdown that a lot of people are talking about. It would be the Bengals. And I'm not trying to take anything away from the Bengals. I love Burrow. I love Jamar Chase. But the reason I took the Bengals plus 800 was because of their path. It wasn't because of their team. They have some weaknesses primarily on that O-line. And they have not been awe-inspiring or confidence-inspiring in their last 2 games. Even in playoff wins, they've only scored 3 touchdowns and kicked 8 field goals. You're not going to field goal the Chiefs to death. And in last game against the fraudulent Titans, it took every bit of Ryan Tannehill throwing that game away on 3 picks for the Bengals to score 19 and win that game. You can't kick field goals like that against Kansas City, and you have to imagine that some of that turnover luck rolls back. But having said all of that, I'm all over the place on this game, and here's why. That's why I don't have a concrete play in terms of a side on this game. This matchup for Cincy is a lot less daunting against Kansas City than it would have been if it were against Buffalo. Buffalo is a much better D-line, a much better pass rush than Kansas City, and Cincy's Achilles heel is obviously that offensive line. I think this line should be around 5-6 points instead of 7, but instead of taking a side, I told you I'm sticking with that future bet at Bengals plus 800. I will be looking for opportunities for the Chiefs to hedge out on the money line. So that's going to be something if you have a similar future, if you took the same future I did when I gave it out here on the podcast, then, follow me on Twitter and, I'll let you guys know when I'm able to find a hedge opportunity and where I found that hedge opportunity. But instead of taking a bet on the side here, I love the total. It seems too easy, but I don't care. I'll eat the cheese. I'll walk right into the trap. Over 53.5 Bengals Chiefs. I got this early. I still love it at 54.5. The last 7 Chiefs overs have hit. The Chiefs are averaging 37.28 points per game in the last 7 games. The total points scored in Mahomes' 3 AFC Championship games were 62, 59, and 67. Mahomes' overs in conference championship games are 3-0, covering by an average of 9 points per game. And then here's a little fun historic trend here. Conference championship overs where each team averages at least 22 points per game. are 21-7-3 since 2003, hitting at a 75% clip. The last time these two teams played, it was the regular season. It was week 17, and it was 34-31 Bengals at 65 points with 900 total yards combined with both teams, and showed why you bet the over when these types of teams are involved with those types of weapons, and primarily when these types of quarterbacks are involved. And that game was in a game KC only scored 3 in the second half. That's not happening again, and we saw it against Buffalo. It was 26-21 with 2 minutes left, needing 8 points for the over. I was doubting it on fourth down for the Bills, 4th and 14. Obviously, the rest is history. And then you look at the final score at 42-36, and it's like, why was I ever nervous? But that shows exactly why you bet the over in games with these explosive quarterbacks and weapons and offenses. Things get crazy at the end of the game. We saw it last time these two teams matched up. The Chiefs got up early. It was a shootout in the second quarter, and the Chiefs score in the fourth, but the Bengals get a field goal and win. I think it's much of the same. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. If I had to make a guess on the score, I'll say 38-35 Chiefs. I think it's going to be really high scoring. And then something that lends well to that theory, I have Patrick Mahomes over 290.5 passing yards. He's averaging 296 in a down year this year. He's went over this total the last 2 playoff games this year easily with 404 and 378 yards. And in the last 3 years, Mahomes has made the AFC Championship each year and thrown for over 290 all 3 times he's gotten there. Don't doubt Patrick Mahomes. As Andy Reid apparently said on the sideline, when it's grim, be the Grim Reaper. And that's what Patrick Mahomes was last week, and I expect much of the same this week at 5 o'clock. Mark, actually, let's give you a quick little summary there in case anyone jumps out early. Over 53.5 Bengals Chiefs, 5.5 units to win 5 units. Mahomes over 290.5 passing yards for 4 units. Bengals plus 800 to win the AFC from before the postseason, 1.5 units to win 12 units. I will be looking to hedge that. So let's get to Marky Pucks at 5 o'clock. He's got the San Jose Sharks plus 1.5 at the Carolina Hurricanes for 1 unit at plus 100 on the even. So I think this feels disrespectful to the Sharks. Sharks are 18-12 against the spread as a puck line underdog. Sorry, folks. Hurricanes are only 16-17 against the spread as a puck line favorite. The Hurricanes haven't covered minus 1.5 in their last 4 games. Their last 3 wins are only by 1 goal. So give me the San Jose Sharks plus 1.5 at the Carolina Hurricanes for 1 unit at plus 100. Moving on to the other NFL game, I similarly have 3 bets in this, or I have 2 bets in this game. So I have 3 bets remaining, 1 NBA, 2 NFL. Let's start with the NFL, and this is my lock of the day, my best bet, my lock of the night. 49ers plus 3.5 at the Rams, 6.5 units to win 6 units. The 49ers fans are going to take over SoFi they're going to take over SoFi in the AFC Championship game like they did in week 18, and they have the opportunity to do it again next week in the Super Bowl since that game is in LA. Everyone's focusing on the chance that the Rams can play another game in their home stadium. Not a far trip for the 49ers fans, as they're showing tonight when people are expecting it to be a 60-70% 49ers crowd. So that'll be an interesting thing to take over. So home field advantage to me, you can kind of wipe that aside. And part of me hates to say that, since I'm holding a Rams plus 800 to win the Super Bowl ticket. But, I've got a rule. You don't bet against Patrick Mahomes. And then I've got another rule. You don't bet against Kyle Shanahan as an underdog. Kyle Shanahan is 28-17 against the spread as an underdog. He's 12-7 straight up in his last 19 games as an underdog. He's 14-4 against the spread as an underdog since 2019. And that is including games with luminaries such as CJ Beathard and Nick Mullins. Together, head coach Kyle Shanahan and quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo are 11-3 against the spread as road underdogs. And I know Jimmy G was bad last week. I know you're thinking I can't bet on Jimmy G. But take a look at his last 10 games of the regular season this year, including his 2 Rams wins. He had 2,700 yards, 14 touchdowns, 8 picks on 70% completion percentage and a 103 passer rating. And the 49ers were 7-3 in those last 10 games in which he was averaging 270 passing yards per game. He is not incapable of playing well with the weapons San Francisco has now that they're out of the elements into a dome. and he played very well in a dome last time against the Rams, and he played very well twice this year in wins against the Rams. But more importantly than Jimmy G, back to the Shanahan point. Shanahan owns McVay. 6-0 straight up in the last 6, 7-3 against the spread against McVay in his career. But the crazy thing is here, the Rams were favored in 5 of their last 6 games to the 49ers. They lost all 6. That's unbelievable to me. I had no idea that they were favored in 5 of those 6 games. That's shocking to me. And now that Sean Payton is gone, I can confidently say that I believe Kyle Shanahan is a top 2 coach in the world of football. You don't bet against Kyle Shanahan as an underdog, and you don't bet on Sean McVay against Kyle Shanahan. Add that rule to my list. I truly do think it's a 50-50 game, which makes it a no-brainer to take 49ers plus 3.5. If I had to be honest, best case scenario for me in this game is the Rams win by 1 to 3 points, because then I cash the 49ers plus 3.5 here, and I keep my Rams plus 800 to win the Super Bowl ticket alive for next week. So I'm rooting for overtime. I'm rooting for something at the end. And my bold prediction on Chalk Talk with Shane Haff right here on the Painted Lines was that both games go to overtime. That's my crazy bold prediction. But I truly do think both games are going to come down to the wire. Again, I think we're in store for a great day. But we've got another pick here in the NFL. I've got Deebo Samuel, anytime touchdown scorer for 3 units. He has scored in 8 of the last 10 games. He has 10 touchdowns in those games. He's not just a receiver. He's a running back too at this point. He's got 6 receiving touchdowns and 9 rushing touchdowns. Giving me Deebo at plus 100 with his recent success in this matchup feels like stealing, so I'll place 2 units on it. So give me Deebo Samuel, anytime touchdown scorer for 3 units, and give me my best bet, the San Francisco 49ers plus 3.5, 6.5 units to win 6 units. So let's move on to the last play. At 8 o'clock, we've got the Minnesota Timberwolves team total over 113.5 versus the Utah Jazz for 4 units. The Jazz have given up over this total in 2 of their last 3 games. The T-Wolves have scored over this total in 4 of their last 5 games and in 8 of their last 11 games. The T-Wolves have really done a good job on offense around Karl Anthony Towns, Anthony Edwards, and D'Angelo Russell. They have really done a good job shot distributing and getting all three of those guys their looks. Props to Chris Finch. The Jazz, you think, they're a great defense? Not really this year. They still given up 2 of the last 3 over this total, and the Timberwolves are a top 10 offense in terms of scoring points per game. So let's give you a summary. Let's give you a quick rundown. We've got Patrick Mahomes over 290.5 passing yards for 4 units. We've got over 53.5 in Bengals Chiefs for 5.5 units to win 5 units. We've got Bengals plus 800 to win the AFC from before the playoffs at 1.5 units to win 12 units. We've got the San Jose Sharks plus 1.5 at the Hurricanes for 1 unit at 5 o'clock. We've got my best bet, the San Francisco 49ers plus 3.5 at the Rams, 6.5 units to win 6 units at 640. Also at 640, we've got Deebo Samuel, anytime touchdown scorer for 3 units at plus 100 even money. And then last but not least, at 8 o'clock, we've got the Minnesota Timberwolves team total over 113.5 at the Utah Jazz, or versus the Utah Jazz at home, actually, for 4 units at 8 o'clock. So thank you for listening. Thank you for being a part of the Tough Cover Click. I'm hoping that I delivered you some winners today, like I have been recently, and especially like I did yesterday. That's the goal, and enjoy the winners.